Lettering.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so there's some short stuff, there's some longer stuff, and I wanted to remember to ask if anybody's got something that I didn't put down here. Got another thought, question, topic? No, okay. All right. So Rob has some show and tell for us. We're going to chat quickly about the skill shares. We're going to maybe have a question from Rob and Christine about next week's meeting. Then we get to discuss what makes a member, longer discussion, and medium length discussion about onboarding, and then operations time. It'd be really cool if a bunch of people showed up who were planning to be here for the second half and we just throw them into operations, just be like, hey, there's stuff to do. What do you want to do? That would be funny for me. Maybe not for them. Okay, so let's get started. Rob, this is your show and tell.
Yeah. Can we switch the show and tell and talk and the quick question about the Skillshare plan? Because the dog is on my lap and I would have to move it, and I don't know, she's pretty settled in. So
Absolutely. Totally. We can switch that. Let's talk about skill shares. Oh, the last thing I'll say is that down under this, I threw a space for note taking. So I'm not skilled at facilitating and note taking. So if anyone else is like, oh, that was a great one, let me get that down. Please do. Thanks. Some skill shares. Yeah, who wants to start this? I kind of know the gist of it, but happy to pass off.
yeah, I mean, just to say, I think the idea, and I know I talked about this a little bit with Zoe already, but I think the idea is just to, for us to decide like what we want to do with the skill shares for the near future. So yeah, I'll see if anybody else is ready to jump in, but before I speak to it.
Yeah, I mean, what are you thinking? What have you been seeing, Zoe, about those?
I don't know exactly how April went. I'm sure it was amazing. I wish I were there at those skill shares. Did Rob mention that there were few people showing up? Is that like a problem that we should try to address, either by doing less frequent skill shares or by hyping them up more? I'm not sure. I'm also kind of fine with few people showing up to my skill shares sometimes. Whoever, yeah, I don't know. Monthly is fine for me. I totally can do monthly skill shares. Because it kind of just helps me process all the changes that are happening and hang out with y'all. Yeah, so how much of a problem was the low attendance?
I think what I understand is it's a balance of like attendance and also like how do we want to use our HSC time. There's a lot of like cooperative stuff that's bubbling for planning, and so I think it's just like checking in on what makes sense for this next stretch of time. That's my thought that
Cool.
yeah.
So like allocating more of our weekly meetings, maybe less to Skillshare now and more to operations and our new era. Constructing our new era.
Yeah. I mean, part of
Cool.
my
I'm fine with
input suggest that like on off week plan, in the winter was like people wanted to be organizing, but also doing something. And I think now we're more in a point to be doing even more cooperative,
Cool.
So I think we filled that need pretty well for like the time we were in. I don't know. That was my impression. Which was for there to be some like something to chew on happening.
Yeah,
Talking about a lot of ideas and a lot of visioning, a lot of like up in space. stuff and bringing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just sort of curious. Who were the people who showed up to April Skillshares? Were there any new people? I forgot. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, I did the email marketing Skillshare. So Justine came to that one and Saya came to that one. And I think Joshua came to that one.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean,
I would have been there.
it was really good. I mean, I think, um, right. I feel like when I say it's good, I feel like it was valuable for the people who showed up. Um, you know, and myself included, right? Just like facilitating it. So I think, you know, from my perspective, what we've seen is that the Skillshares like have a lot of value, um, you know, and can be like a, you know, an important piece. Yeah, but I think like Saya said, it's a matter of like, you know, where we want to put our resources. Um, and you know, if we're saying just like with the group that we have now and what we're doing and how we're promoting now, like there's not, you know, there's it's going to be a small number of people, you know, and then that
Mm,
also, right, because like less people have been signing up for Skillshares, you know, sort of like as a feedback loop, you know, there's not that many
mm-hmm.
people, there's not, you know, so the sort of excitement I think has waned, and I think that's fine because
Yeah.
I think we are in this phase now where we're like building something that the Skillshares are a part of. And
Cool.
so I think that, you know, I imagine like, or my thought, you know, is that they come back, you know, more into play more often, like when we decide, hey, let's like, you know, kind of launch out more into the general public, you know, because I think
Mm,
then they'll serve another purpose, you know, which is like, hey, like we have this thing that we're offering, you know, we're not only saying, hey, come to HSC because of all this the stuff we're doing, but also, you know, we're, you know, we have value that we're, you know, we're open to sharing. So yeah, but I think if week after week, you know, you get like a really small number, then that can sort of degrade
yeah, sure.
the process. So, you know, so that's my thought. I mean, if you wanted like, if you wanted do, you know, if we have it once a month, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question. You know, do what do folks think about having, you know, having one once a month? I mean, I know Zoe, you're like down for that anyways.
If it's needed though. Yeah. It also could just be like if I want to share some, oh yeah, like the new algorithm is taking form. I've gotten lots of new stranger eyeballs, so that's very exciting. I could just like send that on one of maybe like a social media Discord chat or something like that. So instead of meeting every month, we could just use the Discord chat to send updates and stuff like that.
I have another thought that's kind of parallel to that, or mixed in with some of the what I'm hearing so far, which is that a core group of like members, whatever we organizers, like, you know, like whatever, um, and then the next circle of people who come in may not want to spend 2 hours every week doing operations and visioning and logistics every week. And so the Skillshare gives a little breather that might
Sure.
also be helpful once in a while. And when certain things are in place, that 2 hours may not need to be devoted to like business meeting. What if there were times when it's actually a 40-minute Skillshare and then a meeting? And that might actually
Ooh.
bring people to the meetings
Mm.
because there's going to be a fun Skillshare, and then
Yeah.
talk about some boring operations.
That's perfect. I love
But
it.
maybe in like an interim space, maybe it's like for the next 2 or 3 months, and summer is who knows, whatever. So, well, it's summer for us, anyways, not for other people. But you know, people are seasonal. You know, things ebb and
Mm,
flow, I think, a little bit. So yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
love
taking
it.
notes.
Thank
Um,
you. I'm just taking notes.
yeah, I mean, I like that. I think that seems to, mesh with what I'm, what everybody's saying, so we say like, have it once a month, right? But we're also saying we can like adjust, it could be a combination Skillshare meeting. Yeah, and then that keeps sort of that, that alive, that aspect that we have sort of given birth to, and now people like know what that means. So that's, I think that's a plus, but then, it doesn't have to like take, more resources than that makes sense at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah.
Go team. I like it.
okay.
I'm gonna put the
So just
notes.
for like a concrete like proposal / action plan, are we thinking like, okay, for the next 3 months, Skillshares are scheduled once a month, and then we'll see. And then, or in that time, if someone is like, wow, I really would love to share this additionally thing this month, or there's going to be extra space at a meeting, who wants to like bring a Skillshare for part of that there's flexibility to have that happen.
Yeah.
That's making sense. Okay.
And since we're talking about the actual, plans, do we want to just decide on like what week of the month it is? Because then that's going to make it easier to schedule everything else around it. Like the second week of the month, the third week. What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Pick a week.
Does anybody have a knowing?
You could check if you're a group knowing.
I
I
could.
guess I can.
Yeah. Second week of the month
Yeah, great.
feels spacious to me.
Great. So that's for June, July, and August. Sweet.
Is for the second week of the month. Each month. Great. Love it.
Awesome.
Good job, us.
Sounds good. All right. Rob, show and tell is next.
Show
Unless
and tell next. The dog has jumped off my lap, so it's
the dog knows.
great. Yeah. The dog knew. The dog had a sense. Okay, so all right, so show and tell. So basically, one thing I've been working on is the just looking at the, I've been working on kind of the token mechanisms. There's something that occurred. This was like, so we've been working on like, how to facilitate this, talking with, there's this new person, Christine, who's gonna join us next week. But we were workshopping, there's this idea of like, this is just to give you the bigger context. There's the idea of like our member portal, right? And our member portal is fine for facilitating some things, for so far for the token like value exchange, it hasn't been, really effective at that, and fair enough. So, there's this way where we, are sort of learning about and connecting with some other organizations that are doing similar things, nobody's doing like exactly what we're doing here. But people are doing similar things, and they're using kind of like similar, especially there's like Guy and Ed is using, is really doing like the matchmaking, like the big database, right? So like the whole person profile that we're doing, goes really well, with like the database, and all the people's skill sets. But they're not doing work on the value exchange and the tokenomics. So basically, with the member portal, there's this way where we really want to be thinking, about, what tools we want to use, and not to like redo anything if there's already something, that works. And there's a couple other organizations. So, but I haven't quite found anything yet. I was actually looking for a CRM. I was just looking at templates because there's a client who I'm going to make a custom CRM for. and I was looking at like through Airtable templates, and I found something called the orbit model. Here, I'll share my screen now. It was yeah. So I want to give love to here. Let's look here. Actually, let's go here. Give some love to the orbit model because they are about love. That's the name of the thing that they're measuring. So here, and it's I think that the website is just if somebody wants to put it in the notes, orbit.love, or I can put it in the chat.
Nice.
So yeah, and so it's kind of fascinating. I won't go into all of it, but essentially, it's a model for just for tracking community engagement, right? So there's a lot of similarities, and this is what the Airtable base looks like, and so they built it all right. There's actually a platform that they built, and I was like, oh great, you built this thing. Let's just join in. And then apparently that got shut down, and they moved to another company. So I don't know if it exists anymore. But so it's basically just like the idea of people using here, and I'll jump back into my Airtable. Where's my Airtable? So it's basically what here, this is the original one. So it really has three tables here, right? So you have just the members, right? You have the member list, right? You have they're calling it activity types. We call it like maybe contribution or value exchange, types or whatever. So basically, people, it's very similar to what we're doing. People contribute to the community in certain ways, right? They this is for developers, but they write a blog post or they organize a meeting, and there's a certain value score system, number of points for that, right? And then people log the activities. So this person Casey gave product feedback, so they there's a log of it, and then that just comes up on the member like the member dashboard, so everybody can see, right? So they're not like tokenizing for exchange, they're using it as a measurement. But I was going through that, and there's a lot of kind of fancy formulas and a lot of things that are going on in the back end, and so that helps. So what I did was in a pretty simple way, I adapted it for what we're doing. And so I think that and from what I tried, I just worked on this morning, so I hadn't even put like that much into it, but it is something that seems pretty viable for what we're trying to do. So yeah, I thought it'd be cool to show that to you all a little bit. Can you see well enough?
Yeah.
Right. So here's our members. I deleted some of theirs, but here's like some of us, right? A member, and then we have there's really kind of two. There's so the first thing I did is I made a token value for everything, right? So this is something, so we can have as many like value types or activities as we want, right? Organize a Skillshare. 10 tokens, facilitated a meeting, 5 tokens, right? Do an email marketing role. So, we basically decide that we can have this list as long as we want. And these are all the contributions. So, what I like about the model is that it's like, we're categorizing everything. So it's easy for somebody to then go and, just like fill out a form. We're not, we're saying like, hey, like a blog post is this, you tweeted about us, that's this amount, to try and make it easy. And then the second thing is, like value exchanges, right? So this is a little bit different because this is when you have an exchange, with somebody, right? So the other day, Sai and I met, for like an hour and a half, right? And so here I would just log that. So to me, there's and especially the way that this sort of counts the contributions, there's really kind of two different ways. One is just like these standardized contributions, that somebody is just like, I did this, I'm logging it. And then there's like the actual value exchange where tokens are exchanged. So I'm like, I have, whatever, 20 tokens, and I'm now exchanging that with Saya. And so then what happens is, right, all of that is logged, on here. So, so everything is logged. And then that will then just show up on our token, tally, right? So we can see, this is like total lifetime, and then this is like currently what everybody has, right? So we can see I've given 20 tokens, and Saya has received 20 tokens, right? And then there were a couple other value exchanges. So you drop that on there, right? And so basically, we're pulling in numbers, the total tokens that somebody has earned, either from exchanges or from contributions. And then that ends up here in their the log, their bank account or whatever, how many tokens they have. And then if somebody exchanges tokens with them, it gets added onto here. If you exchange with somebody and give them tokens, it takes away from here. And there's there's some more pieces that would need to be kind of added on. But that's kind of the basic gist of it, right? And then we can also, like I kept in the orbit model because there's ways where we can like give like, like a value for like engagement, right? So if somebody's, really engaged, they'd be like a 10, and somebody's, not so engaged, right? But at its base level, this is like could be a Web 2 method of tracking our contributions until everything in Web 3 is ready, or until we figure it out. So that's what I wanted to. I'll just stop there. Any thoughts or comments?
It looks very cool. Yeah. And I like the orbit model giving some language around, I mean, it's kind of like ranking, but it is just indicating like degree of participation. And I think that's helpful. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, this is I kept it. This is like their readout, because they're saying like you gave contributions, and then I guess for them, right? This is something that's interesting. They're measuring like reach, so they're saying Basil has, a certain amount of Twitter followers and GitHub followers, right? So they're saying, oh, okay, that translates into you have more reach when you're putting stuff out. I don't know that we would measure it that way, but that comes into like their scores. Basically, they have a love score and a reach score and an activity score.
Right.
So we can adapt it, in whatever ways we want, and there's also ways where we can, right? I mean, I think a very simple way, if we're going to just use like the hypha model, is there's another field here that's governance tokens, right? And if we use again the hypha model, that you just get twice, right? So somebody brings in a new member, 5, they get 10 governance tokens. And then those tokens, are used to vote on community proposals. And those can have decay built into them, which separates then your spending money from your decision-making power. And the other thing is, on the value exchanges, right? We're talking about this like expertise, this expertise framework. So, that's something that, rather than just like turning it into a market where, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to charge, 50 tokens for my hour. We're just going to have that expertise framework, so it's more standardized. So then somebody could just say, yeah, I helped with, I did an hour of consulting at, intermediate level. So then that's, 8 tokens. Yeah. Any other? thoughts? I mean, it's just a show
I'm
and tell, so it doesn't.
super down to try something like this. I always wonder, will someone like you, I guess it would be you, Rob, be like the treasurer of sorts to like help us go in and do this, or would we be trusted to play with our numbers ourselves?
I think that there would be, I mean, my thought, it's a great question. My thought is that, we'd have to buy the paid plan, which is
Uh,
fine. But my thought is that everything is transparent, but we make the permissions so that way people, that only the people whose role it is, whether it's me, you or somebody else, or, multiple people, the only people whose role it is, to monitor this, and maintain it, have access to like these, but everybody can look at it, right? And so then the way people enter it, and this is the like a super simple way, right? Is just with a form, right? So anytime you want to add something, my name is Rob. My activity was
Yay.
facilitated a meeting,
Awesome.
next week. That's it.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, done. Submit another response. And then it's the same thing with the value exchange. There's you have a form. So that way it's a little later down the road that you can make like no code apps with Airtable and with other connected programs. So, it could sort of have more in it, and it could also have like the member profiles and things like that. Yeah, but yeah, that's the answer to your question.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I liked that. Streamlined enough. Maybe possible for me to handle.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, and
Cool.
this might even be, I like it if this is sort of like is a list rather than, so you just like pick, send, receive. You wouldn't even decide how many tokens exchanged by the value exchange activity. It just it just has its token
Automatic.
sent,
Cool.
received. Might be like how many hours. That's it. So right, I stumbled upon it, and then I was like, oh, I got excited, right? So this is something to bring towards the group, is to like, hey, do people want to, want to develop this, and then also, jump in on something like this to actually start collecting tokens. Zoe, I don't know how you ended up with 71 more than anybody else, but that's just, the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I was asking the same question.
Yeah, this was random, and you're on top, so it means
I think it's
Sure.
because everybody loves this social media Skillshare so much.
Is that what happened?
They have a very high value. Yeah.
value. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to show. There's one more sort of show and tell thing. It's in the there's a link to it in the meeting notes.
Yeah, do you want to talk about that now? Um,
No,
Does
let's
that kind
keep
of
with
get
your
this
agenda.
into the membership? I don't know, it's kind of related to both topics, right? The member and this is more about like tokens and value sharing.
Yeah, the other thing is a little bit more about value sharing. So yeah, why don't I leave that, and then people can percolate on that, and then we'll go to the next one, which I think is actually the like really important one today, to actually like talk about with people with our words.
Okay, okay. Are there any like next steps about this Airtable orbit proposal? Do we make a decision?
I think it's really it's tied in with everything else. I think it's tied in with two pieces. Number one, it's certainly like tied in with what we're going to talk about next. Like the membership, but it's really tied in with like next week's meeting, which is like, what is the strategy? What do we want to achieve next 3 to 6 months? And do we want to, does that involve, jumping into like, exchanging tokens and playing in that system. So I think I would, I could mess around with it for, forever, but I think for me, I think it makes sense to kind of hold off on making any decisions around it.
Okay.
Or doing like too many more next steps until we see like how it ties in. But I think, showing it and letting people see like what is, what like functionality is actually possible, now with relative ease, is helpful. Thanks.
Very cool. Great. Yeah, this is the second place that I recently hear Airtable. So I'm really glad to have that little window into what that means.
Yeah.
Also, in addition to this is relevant for HSC, I was like, okay, there's this thing. That's great. Great. That's good. All right, cool. So we thought now we would take a larger stretch of time to really discuss the question of membership and kind of review a little bit what's already been talked about, and this more recent introduction, the idea of membraneship, and talking about what does that mean. So I'm just curious. I know that Rob has a lot of thoughts and has put a bunch of time into some membership questions. I'm wondering if either Zoe or Kim were at one of the previous meetings where membership was talked about a bit, and if either of you wanted to like summarize or throw something in about that. I think I personally was not at least one meeting where membership was talked about. No.
I've missed a lot of operational meetings.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think really briefly, the idea is, that if we decide, what a member is, that can create like a lot of like tangible action, coming from that. It can also sort of, get everybody, feeling like we're all, contributing, at a, at this kind of certain level. So it's not exactly like, what are we trying to achieve, and then, what's the plan and the strategy, but it's mixed right in there. And I think that it's also something that, I thought would be great to discuss, so people, and especially like hear from people that aren't me, to be like, what does seem reasonable, like what could I commit to, and then the idea, right, of that membraneship is to say, is to say like, if you decide that you can do this month and then next month you can't, then you sort of just move through the membrane to the other next, sort of outer layer, and then the next month, you come back in. So to design it in a way where we're sort of trying to keep the sort of real binary in or out paradigm from happening. And so the list I put in the chat, and that's in the meeting notes, is just kind of like a list of ideas, but essentially, that's the question, for us, like, for the community to function, like what do we need from members, and then, like what makes sense just from we who are here, from our standpoint, as far as like what's reasonable to kind of contribute each month, again, given like where we're at now.
Cool. Well, why don't we all like read through what's there, and then like chime in on what, like, as a jumping off point, what does that kind of give you next? Um, Okay. Anybody want to dive in with something that like really resonates, or that question Rob raised of like what seems reasonable? Like we all want to be members, I think. So if we fit the definition of member, that's a good thing. That means we're members. So what feels doable? What feels doable? What feels sustainable? What feels like, oh, I could do that for 3 months, but I might have a month where I can't, and that's the membraneship where there's some like fluidity.
I could see myself doing some of these at some times and other things at other times. But because I think sometimes I forget to do my coordinate. But if that's required to being a member, I could try to make it happen every month. Um, yeah, I feel like, there's a list of circles and you could choose just one, and then there are a list of boxes and you could choose like multiple. Does that make sense? I feel like this is a good list of boxes, and if you check at least one or two of them, maybe you're a member, and you could do different ones different months, or is that way too membraney? And like maybe check at least three? I don't know.
What, I mean, like, what is the goal that you really want to reach with this? Because like the one that stands out to me is, take on some role and submit proposals for doing so. And that again, might not be something you could do all the time, but if you don't ever do it, or does that mean you're not a member? Or, is that, can you be a member without taking on a role? That's my biggest question. And then I don't understand what 5 means. Adjust needs and offerings once a month. Sorry, I don't know what that means. So,
Yeah,
That means your
go ahead.
profile. Yeah, that's just very specific to your profile. Like we've each at some point probably listed our needs and offerings,
Okay.
but those may change over time. So if we all commit to updating them periodically, that feeds into what's current and actually accessible resource.
okay,
Cool.
all right, that makes sense. And the whole person resume makes sense. And of course, you want to be voting on, you want to be a voting member. I mean, if you're going to be a member, you should vote. I think I like the, having how many, so many meetings a month seems like a reasonable expectation, unless, you're on a ashram like, Natalie is, or something like that, So yeah, that was and I'm sorry, I haven't done the coordinate because I haven't figured it out yet. So I would do it once I took the time to figure it out, but
Sure.
but I think I like it. I just haven't, I haven't been able to devote the time to that and ask somebody to help me through it. And then log exchanges and contributions seems to make a whole lot of sense. So, yeah. But I kind of thinking, that maybe something like what Zoe's saying is more like it, it's 2 or 3 things, to be a member, but there are things there though that I think maybe would need it to be a member, like 7 and 8.
Mm.
And actually probably 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the rest of them might be more optional or something, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, because Zoe, what you're speaking to is like, like taking on a role. Because I think there's something where like, that if we're gonna say, if we're saying like, hey, the value is that like I'm earning tokens, that I can then, use for exchanges. Then then I think that there are probably like the required pieces in order to just like make that functionality, like like giving coordinate, right? Because if you don't give coordinate, but then everybody else is, then it's sort of like messes with the system. An exchange, like I think there's these baseline things like log your exchanges and contributions, and the coordinate, and vote, and the like those pieces. I think as far as a role, there is a way where, so there's like, I think there's a way where maybe it's, really a certain amount of contribution like per month is required. And, right, it doesn't necessarily have to be taking on a role. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like all like the contribution has to all come in like doing, like some people could just pay like, a membership, like pay a membership fee, or if we're going to have a membership fee, which is something we talked about too, that's not actually on this list, but
Right.
but you pay, like, okay, well, I'm going to pay like 20, the regular membership fee is $10 a month for everybody. I'm going to put in $20 a month, and that, like each dollar is worth a certain amount of tokens. And I think that's good. That's not like, oh, I'm paying my way out. I think that's good, because then what that allows somebody else to do is come in as a member and take on a role and contribute, and then there's a pool, right? And then we can start to actually like pay people a little bit for those roles. So maybe, so I think that's my question with, like what, rather than, it could be like a check the boxes thing, but maybe like there's a lot that's encompassed in that like role, or just like taking on a certain level of contribution.
Yeah, so yeah, so like, so then you have, and I don't know exactly where you were with that chart before, and I kind of came in late because I was on that call, but, so a role would have more impact or more incentive or more something to take it. Because my first question when I saw that was, do you expect everybody to take a role? And if you don't, is the organization going to break down if everyone doesn't have a role? Are you going to just not be able to get stuff done?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, especially now, right? Yeah, I mean, that is a good question, like whether it flies, if not everybody takes on a role, as it stands. I don't know, but it might be, if we're sort of tokenizing things, it might be interesting to just kind of do it by like a contribution level, right? And we could, it's be something we'd have to play with, but like, what's the number, like, so I guess, there's check the boxes, but there's also like, what's the number that you would feel comfortable with, Zoe? As far as like, it could be in like a role, or it could be in like hours, or. And the other piece, sorry, and the other piece is, that I really would love to hear about is this number one, which is like, you have to agree to exchange, like a certain, whether it's 1, 2, exchange a certain amount of, like of your offerings per month. Because I think people are like,
But if my one offering is teaching Korean and nobody wants to learn, then all I can do is write HSC emails. I mean, that's my contribution, but I haven't offered my own personal skill to the collective.
yeah, well, yeah. Maybe
I don't
nobody will
think we
take me
want,
up on it, but
we're
I
not
think
gonna
if,
discriminate against people who can teach Korean, I don't think, but you know.
yeah.
Wait, do you teach Korean?
No.
Okay, I was about to be like, oh my god, that's awesome. Uh,
Sorry, Kim, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I kind of forgot what it was. That was kind of entertaining. I don't remember. It'll come back, I'm sure.
Yeah.
sorry.
All right, I've been holding back, but I got some thoughts. I mean, all of what you said like is like jumping off points for me. Um, I really like that you introduced that sort of graphic, Zoe, of like there's like circular aspects and square aspects. And I'm not sure exactly what you meant, but I started to go with like a circle could be things that are sort of required of everyone.
Ooh.
As an idea, like to be in the inn, like you need to update your needs and offerings periodically. Maybe once a month is a lot, maybe every other month. You need to log your activity, you need to coordinate, and you need to vote. You know, like that sort of, or some really simple, extremely practical way of being a participant. And then if like there's all these little like squares, I just want to note that there's roles, but there's also tasks. So a role is like managing some aspect or overseeing some aspect in my view, but then taking on specific tasks in a certain field could feel less demanding, could feel like, oh, I can do 3 tasks a month and I just put it in my calendar and I know that every first Wednesday I do X and no. You know, it's different than being like the manager of something. So maybe not everyone has the skill or the desire to take a role who may feel really comfortable taking a handful of tasks. Right? So just to think about like that, and of course, roles, in my view, could have a much higher value because of the time and maybe expertise that and energy that goes into managing something and thinking creatively about something or coordinating an onboarding circle. That's a big role. That's a big role. That should be worth something more than, oh, my task is to, you know, introduce 3 people to coordinate this month so that they have a clue how it works. That's a task.
And those are badges too.
Mm.
And that's what I was writing in the chat, and that's where I was going before.
Yes.
Because I was at the same place you were with the boxes
Yeah.
and the circles and thinking, you said it way better than I did, because I was like going to badges, but the badge would be earned for a task, and then the badge would have some sort of more incentive, more value to, but not as much as a role.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, so a badge is interesting. I'm not sure how we would do that in Airtable. I mean, what I saw in Airtable is that there's that ranking, right? So you become an ambassador, you're in the inner circle, meaning you've had a lot of activity. You have a high level of engagement with this organization. And then from there, you go out the circle and you're a contributor at a different level, like a participant, and then an observer is the least participatory. A user is number 3. What's number 2? There's not a lot of number 2.
No, there aren't. Yeah, it's a little, let's see if it's in here.
Number 2.
Oh, a fan is what they're calling it. Observer, user, fan, ambassador.
Yeah, I would definitely change the language on that because a fan seems a lot better than a lot worse than a number 3. Anyways, so however we'd want to interpret those, I don't know if that's what you meant by badge, Kim, but that was my next thought, is that people's ranking in the organization changes depending on their degree of engagement. And the last thing I want to say, I have other ideas, but I'll stop after this for now, is that I think the membership definition needs to be very, very simple. The upfront definition needs to be like, everyone commits to these 3 or 4 things, and everyone checks off 2 or 3 of those boxes every month or every 2 months as a cycle, maybe. A month goes fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And simple, really simple. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Other stuff.
Well, also on badges, I guess what I was thinking was, with Seeds, we had the guardian, we had a role of guardian, but it could have also been a badge where it's like, maybe there's something that we're monitoring and we have a badge for monitoring that. And it's not like it takes a whole lot of time, but it's an important thing that needs to get done. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, and what does a badge give someone? Is that value? Is it recognition? Is it extra power?
Yeah, so I don't even know how they did that. And because I think you didn't necessarily get any sort of compensation or value for that badge, but I don't know. I don't know. That would be a decision that we would have to make. And maybe it's not a badge, maybe it's just, doing particular tasks, but the badge has always kind of made sense to me. And
Yeah.
so I bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So an interesting thing too about if only a few people end up taking roles, and I'm just going to use like a not unrealistic example, that if Rob and I take a lot of roles for the next year, we will have a
Mhm.
lot in the bank and y'all will be running our businesses because we will call in all your offerings and Rob's social media will go through the roof, blah, blah, blah. So it's not like a bad thing if not a lot of people take on roles, depending on if someone is available to do it genuinely and if the exchanges work, right? That's just one thought. I mean, I don't want to run HSC. I got a lot of other things to do. However, if I'm good at roles and other people are really good at tasks, et cetera, maybe it's not the end of the world. We can experiment. We can see it's going to grow. It's going to change,
You're getting into another topic that's a big topic, which
Oh.
is but it's kind of, it could take some time. But I think about it a lot, which is like, I put my offerings up, and I guess that's the importance of updating your offerings every month or something. But for me, because I'm a gig worker, sometimes I have a lot of time and sometimes I have no time. And so I would have to be updating my offerings like every week, like this week I have no time to talk to any of you about potential work. And then next week I have no work, so that's kind of, it just highlights the importance of updating your offerings. So that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a field we don't have. I don't think in the offerings, we don't have like a time expectation, like of when those hours need to happen or that you have to be available.
Right.
Once you be available, it's just opening the door for the conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was
You
assuming.
have that skill. That's awesome. But the time thing could be interesting. You could be like, I'm really free the next 2 weeks. Who wants a major boost on something?
Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
I didn't mean to bring that up, but that's interesting.
Side topic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
Interesting.
Because I hadn't been thinking about offerings in regards to like time. I've been thinking about them as like,
Wow.
I mean, in some ways I'd be thinking, Zoe, like you go through that process, but you never change your offering. It's like, I'm a social media person, right? That's my offering
Right.
forever.
Right.
But I think, yeah, I was thinking about the time aspect, right? I mean, and that's a tricky one, but that I was thinking about the time aspect in regards to like, like this, mandatory like number of hours that you like that you have to, be, okay with exchanging, giving your time. If
Yeah.
somebody calls that in, if they say, hey, I have tokens, I want to like, buy your, you know, with the challenge being like, if you don't have something like that, right, then, you know, a person could just like always say they're busy.
Exactly. Like, what if someone has a ton of tokens and they have so many services they want to purchase, but no one is willing to offer their services at that time? It kind of makes the token meaningless, at least
Yep.
at that point in time.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
wow.
I had a thought about that. Well, I had a thought about it in terms of the membership, but in terms of what people give to the collective for the roles and tasks, that it could be, you know, a requirement to give to HSC X number of contributions every 2-month cycle.
Mm,
I took it one step farther with a minimum of X per 6 months, right? So what if I
mm,
check 2 boxes every single month, but in a 6-month cycle, I can meet 8, or maybe it's 7, just to be generous,
that's really interesting.
Huh.
right? And it
Wow.
could be the same for the offerings aspect, because we don't want to lock anyone into feeling like I have to stay up until midnight because somebody called me in,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't work.
Yeah.
However, if in a 3-month cycle, I need to realistically like look at my schedule and actually do time management and realize that I do have the bandwidth to be in this collective, or I want to
Mm-hmm.
make the time to be in this collective, and therefore I'm going to make sure that in a 3-month cycle I can give X number of my services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, like for example, right? I met, you know, with Saya, and she, you know, gave me her services. She did that because she's cool and we're, you know, a small group, you know, and but like at a certain point, like people aren't, you know, like just because, you know, you're cool isn't going to probably quite do it, you know. And so if I'm like, oh, I'm taking on a role and I'm doing this work for the collective, you know, again, it's but you know, there's some way where it's like I want to then be able to just say like, Sai, I need your help, you know. So
Right.
I think it's great what you both are talking about here, because then it also can't be like, oh well, Sai, I demand you, you know, work with me in the next couple of weeks because I have this token, right? But it also can't be Sai's like, oh well, I'm gonna be busy forever. So how do we?
Yeah, totally. I had this thought about the membraneship that kind of plays into that maybe like maybe there is a line somewhere at some point where someone is a member or not a member, right? And what if that line is actually some kind of a ratio of recent participation and lifetime participation?
Wow, you're
Okay,
talking
because
to a Web3 person.
oh, okay. Well, I this is new to me, but Natalie is on retreat. She doesn't have any recent participation. Do we still consider her a member? I don't know. I wasn't there actually kind of much before her retreat. So, however, if she has a lot of lifetime participation, why shouldn't she be a member? Why shouldn't the door be open?
Sure.
So that's like, if there's some ratio like about that, that makes sense. That could be interesting. And then I was thinking about the question of accountability, like who wants to be the bouncer? Or who wants to like call in and be like, hey, I've noticed that you really haven't like been completing your membership checklist. You know, you haven't been meeting those benchmarks this month or last month or on the regular. So like what's up, or have your needs changed? Do you actually want out like deliberately, or do you want what's going on? You know, there's an expectation. And of course it could be an automated email, blah, blah, blah. But at some point, somebody needs to make a decision, or we need to make a decision about that accountability thing. And one working model would be like the library model. I have kids, we go to the library all the time. We never return all the books on time. And they don't hate us. They just know we love to read. We lose stuff. Sometimes I have to buy a book to replace it. And sometimes they lock my kid's account because it's too far overdue. It doesn't mean my kid can't ever take out a book. It means they have to meet some benchmarks, which is return the book or pay for it before they can take more books. So something to play with for the sort of accountability end of membership, maybe some ideas around that.
This is
I love
hard. There are so many different versions of what membership can look like.
Yeah.
And maybe all of us have different even desires of what membership should look like based on what our lives are like and how we work and how we get stressed. And so for me, thus far, signing up for like Skillshare monthly has been something that sounded, oh, sorry, it's so loud here. I hope you could hear me. Like a monthly Skillshare gives me some structure and repetition, because I really struggle with changing hats and taking on new tasks. And because I have gig work that kind of comes and goes, I really am aching for repetition and routine. So taking on something that is kind of like, you're gonna do these now. No, we need you to do these tasks. I would just love something that's like very simple and repetitive. And maybe that works for me, but someone else is like, oh, I love the freedom to choose random tasks every month. So yeah, I guess that just reaffirms having different boxes to choose from and just choose the ones that work for you, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. That reminds me of the menu. We went out for my son's birthday to this Greek place, and you just go up, you place an order, and then you order, you can see them checking off the boxes as you order, right? And so it's like the
Yes.
salad with these toppings, no cheese. Like there's like the over category, then there's the subcategories like for each dish,
Very customizable.
Yeah. And, I mean, I wonder if it's, right, if there is a way where, again, I'm just going to show this, if there's a way where we can, right, like, for example, this is the menu, right? Now, I know, like, this is from their, most of these are still from their model, right? But this is the menu, right? Every role, like an email marketing role, we could say 1 month, right, is worth something. Like there's a lot, and that's all on the menu. So, there are things like that, right? Like I think this is totally valid. Like brought in a new member, and they completed onboarding, brought in a new member, they stayed for 6, so like that actually doesn't necessarily take somebody's time or a role, but would we consider that as valuable for the community as somebody, taking on a role? Probably, I mean, that's the idea of just like tokenizing the value, or saying, well, what value, token number do we want to give you, give? And again, it's not going to be perfect, but and so like, I think that's the idea of like the menu, right? So, and then if we, we could just say like, we'd say like, okay, well, and we might have to play with it, but it might be like everybody needs, to contribute, 50 tokens worth of value every month. And then you get to just choose from the menu, right? There's like the circle, which I like the circle and the boxes. I like that, visual, right? There's a circle, which is like what everybody has to do. You got to do your coordinate and you got to be, and then all of the contribution is just like this whole menu, boxes, to check. And again, it's like, that's a cool idea. Sai was saying, it's to give it more space. It might not be like 50 tokens worth a month. It's, sort of a certain amount, in a 2-month cycle, and then a certain amount in a 6-month cycle.
Yeah, love it.
And Zoe, I'm totally with you on the consistency. That's That's what I did the last few months that I did the like email formatting. Like I just needed it to be like really clear cut, like clear
Mhm.
every month. And maybe that gets worked into the menu where like you're the Skillshare manager. You've been doing that role for months. You took some time off. Maybe you want that role back for 6 months. Like, and it's clear no one's gonna take it because they happen to get to the menu before you. Like you got it for 6 months. That should be possible.
Totally. And that's like how you do, that's like you submit a proposal, something I think like a role or a badge, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that's, you know, it, it might not be necessary like, current time with the amount of folks we have, right? But, I think that's still the idea. Again, to make it this in this decentralized kind of way. It's like, hey, I want that role. I'm going to, sort of put in a proposal. I'll do it for 6 months. Everybody's like, cool. Yes. And then you just do it. And that's your role.
Yeah.
It's just monthly now though, right? So that's a lot easier. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there's this aspect, right, where like we're gonna just see, we're gonna see what works,
Mhm.
because I do think that there's whether it's a role or a project or a task, there is a certain amount of that has to be done in order for the thing to fly.
Mhm.
And so, so it's like if yeah, yeah, I think so I think we'll see. And there was also this
Cool.
question, right? There was, this is kind of, brings in like, as far as the roles to think about for next week's meeting, like the question came in is like, what actually feels exciting for you? Because there
That's a
are
good
different
one.
aspects, right?
Yeah.
There is this kind of like value exchange monitor person, who's working on on the spreadsheet, and checking in with people and all of that. Then there's also like the community manager, who's a person who's, making sure, everybody knows what's going on and, this and that. And then there's also like onboarding,
Mhm.
who's the person, who's the front person, who makes sure everybody who comes in, and then there's, right, or there's the email sending and there's, right. So I think that's a good thing to, because there's a way I think we're, when you talk about it, where it can get to be like, oh, I have to like take on a role or I have to do this, but there's also, yeah, like what is exciting.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm just gonna like locate us in time. It's 4:23 here. So we have like another 35 minutes to our kind of meeting time. Um, I similar to the values statement and the mission statement, like defining membership is a really big task, I think. And I think we've sketched out a lot of it. And I'm wondering if it goes to committee um at this point or soon. And maybe that'll become more clear next week as things move forward. Yeah. Cool. It may be that it goes to committee and then it comes back as a proposal and it gets refined and blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, Zoe, if I'm thinking long term, and if things go well, I would think of you as in the social media manager role.
Oh yeah, true. That's gonna be a thing at some point.
That's a good thing. I hope if when that becomes a thing, that's a big success. I know we've been talking about that for a long time.
I think this goes back to what Kim said like many minutes ago, which is what's most important for HSC. And I know we have so many different tasks that are important. But yeah, like our skill shares as important as social media strategy. Are we trying to expand in quantity right now of people, or are we still looking for a few solid members? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's most important? What are we doing?
Yeah, that's great. I hope somebody put that in the notes because I think that's really where we're going next week with strategy.
Okay,
But,
great.
but to bring it down to the level of like roles and tasks and how that evolves, like what's important now? What tasks,
Mhm.
roles do we actually let go of for a little while and focus on the other ones? I like that
Sure,
consideration.
sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, great. So I guess I'm just wondering if we close the membership portion of our time today. Yes, we do. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, that was fun. I might check my time planning and think about that committee because it seems kind of fun.
Nice.
All right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I feel like at some point I want to tell you how my other organization does membership just for fun, you know, so you could have more ideas to think about. I don't know if that time is now or if I should just like share it in the Discord later for fun. It's not like exemplary, it just works for us, you know. So,
I'm interested.
yeah,
I'm
I'll
curious.
I'll
Go ahead.
just explain it in the next 30 seconds then. So there is a $10 membership every month. So people who become members are pretty committed. It took a while to get many members, but now we have quite a few, maybe like 40, 50. And once you become a member and you're a dues paying member, you get to choose a work team. And we try to make the work team fit with your interests. So there's an events team for people who like to put on events and are more performative. Lots of theater people are in the events team. And the events could be everything from book clubs to movie nights to just parties and hangouts. I'm on the social media communications team, no surprise. So, yeah, and sometimes we try to even make a team that fits around a person's vibe and interest, if there are enough people to join that team. So that's how we do it. We get money and labor.
Cool. That's cool. Thank you. That's
Yeah.
really good to know. And I think sometimes I forget about it, but like usually when we sort of talk about like a membership fee, whether it's $10 something like $10 a month, right? Or I don't know that I hear people objecting to that. Like I don't like everybody. Yeah, that's like one thing everybody's, and it's and that's good, right? That starts to create a financial pool.
Oh,
So
yeah. I wanted to add the fact that we do pay the membership pays for just general making the lives comfortable for the core team who are just like 2 or 3 people. And they put in a lot to make it what Kim was saying earlier, like so the organization just doesn't collapse if not enough people do that task. So there are those central tasks that are always guaranteed because those core members are covered.
question.
Yeah. And that for me, that's nice because I don't really have to think about those core tasks. I know that they're just happening. I'm a happy dues paying member in that way.
Cool.
Thanks.
I'd vote for discount if you pay a year in advance, and that helps people both stay committed, but also prevents people from just like popping in and out or saying that they're gonna pay every month and participate and then like just disappearing or whatever. Just a thought.
We do auto pay.
Auto pay. Everybody's on auto pay. Fine.
Oh,
But that doesn't automatically mean they're gonna show up for their work team meeting.
it's
You know, like
true.
an auto like bus or something to pick somebody up or auto turn their computer on.
Right, but we're here for the meeting. Okay, that was so nice. Thank you, Zoe. That's cool. All right. So, onboarding. This is a question, right, Rob? Like, do we talk about onboarding right now? Or do we focus on that? Like, because that's such a big question of like strategy. Like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah, it's yeah, I do think that it's right, like the onboarding does depend on like this the strategy.
Yeah,
Because there's always there has to be an onboarding, right? That's just like part of it. But what do we, right? Like, what does that process need to be? How big, like, what are we onboarding people to? I think depends on the strategy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is maybe just good food for thought for now. Like, what is the process? At what level do people get onboarded? And what is the message? This is Rob's language when we talked briefly. If we are bringing people to the table now, we're still building it. It's, do you want to come build this thing and participate and come to the Skillshare? And then at some point, it's like, this thing is happening. Come participate. Membership is defined. We've already done the values, blah, blah, blah. We have our intentions for the next 6 months are X, and people just get to be onboarded. They get to like join the boat. The boat's going in that direction. So I think that'll come up a little more next week, and like maybe time frames, like how many people would we even want to onboard in the build it phase, which is what, the next 3 months? Or anyways, that's just my mind goes into trying to grapple with those things, but we'll get to it. So that's just a little seed to bring. And if you can't be there next week, of course, you can always like write in, you can tell us your thoughts, you can send them in. You can send them in after next week's meeting and just be like, wow, I saw the meeting notes, looks great, wanted to add, so yeah, awesome. 3 minutes stretch break. Yeah, let's do it. Water, stretch, water
Let's
in,
do it.
water out, as they say. What?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna move around for a couple of minutes. All right, hang on. That's my timer. That's my invisible timer. Turn off. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have a little bit of time. We won't do all of these like operational things. I guess it's sort of a vision or a dream of mine that some certain operational things will happen during our meeting time. I think the more systems we have in place that are like automated or just like they're on a roll, the more we'll do that. And so it's not as though I need to take more time out of my week to then get on all the platforms and do all the communication. And I don't know, it's like, oh, we're all here now. So we can in real time figure some things out or generate things. So yeah, just take a look here, in the meeting notes, I've got, possibilities of what we can do now. We can talk about roles and tasks that need to be done and who here can step forward for those for some C amount of time. That doesn't make any sense. Probably was meant to be an X that's right next to the C. Okay, needs and offerings, either in writing or verbal. We could exchange like what's up now with each of us. And put that in the portal. Now I know we're looking at other platforms. The portal is what we have functional at the moment. Am I right? So we're using it, or we could.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's what we're using now.
Yeah, cool. Populate the field with some needs and offerings. This is my little botanical inspiration. If we plant things, they grow. needs and offerings, review each other's needs and offerings, and consider sending a private chat to someone who's here right now to pursue the idea of a give or a receive with someone. That's it. We're a small group. I'm not gonna time this. I don't even think I need to make the decision about exactly what of this we do next. Actually, I will. Roles and tasks. So, does everybody have access to the spreadsheet? That link is usually at the top of the meeting document. And,
Is, yeah.
so if we can all get in there, hang on, there's all these tabs at the bottom that I've hidden from myself. Now, some of the roles and tasks also lives on the portal.
Right.
However, we've been using this spreadsheet more currently for the most necessary, as so far, necessary tasks and roles, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we've
Or active.
necessarily, it's a good idea. We set it up, right? And Basil set it up like during a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the intention of like, doing something like this. And then in Notion, in that roles page is where we've been kind of logging the roles and like what each one entails. So I think it's great to revisit these and see like, okay, what roles do people want to pick up now? Like what roles are actually here? Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's really, make sure, I think we can all look at this together. There's the role calendar tab, and then there's the Skillshare sign up, which actually is also facilitation sign up. I'm wondering if anybody had a chance to update it yet and say that the second of the month, second week of the month is always going to be
The-
Skillshare for the next few months, and the rest will be meetings that need facilitation.
Somebody,
I updated it, but the wording could be finessed
Ah.
if need be.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. You did update it. It's awesome.
All right, I had to refresh mine so I can see what you've done. Okay. Okay, cool. Great. Let's see. May, we're all set for May. June, we have 2 meetings at the end of June that need facilitation. Anybody here excited about that? Or inspired?
I'm generally not inspired to do this. Seems like a lot of words that have to be strung beautifully out of my mouth. Maybe someday I'll work up to it, I guess.
Yeah, no problem. No
All
problem.
good.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, so I think because those are far enough out, we don't actually need to put someone's name in there. There'll be other opportunities to ask around.
Yeah,
That's
I'll put my name in for the 18th, and then
okay.
and then we have something for a good amount of time.
That's great. Let's wait on that. Then we also have well, I don't know, Zoe, how do you want to do the next few Skillshare planning? Do you want to like ask right now? Is there anybody here who wants to offer a Skillshare in June or July?
Yeah, I could be like the backup.
Okay.
And then if anyone here is interested, that would be very cool. And if not, I'll like email around.
Awesome. Great.
I know Justine was interested in offering one, and yeah,
Cool.
She's pretty sick right now, so I would assume she might need like a month to recover and plan. So I'll ask her for July, August, September, maybe. No one here is interested in doing a skills share in June.
I don't think so. My offerings right now are more in facilitation and emails and, well, I'm doing these 2 Friday get it done days. This Friday,
Yeah.
that's sort of extraneous. It's sort of skill sharing. I'm sharing my facilitation skills
Yeah,
at another time during the week. So I'm gonna leave it there
that's
for now.
really nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. That'll be this Friday and next Friday. We'll see how it goes from there. Okay, great. So there's on this particular tab in the spreadsheet, there's nothing that's like imminent that needs a decision today. And that's great. Okay. So then we have the weekly emails. Weekly email sign up, and there's 2 parts to that. One is the writing of content, and the other is the formatting and the sending of the weekly emails. This might all get more interesting if and when we decide, as Rob taught us in the email marketing Skillshare, when we get into like sort of tiered and different types of emails at different times and different frequencies for different people who want to receive more or less from us. But for now, it's a weekly format and send and a weekly write some content. And if you're not going to write it yourself, go ask Zoe for content about the Skillshare, or someone else who's facilitating a meeting. Ask them for content about the meeting they're going to do. Or ask someone for reflection on the meeting they just attended or the Skillshare they just wrapped up. Right? There's different types of content that we've all seen go into those emails. So written content for next week is needed.
and I
Rob,
do.
you kind of want to do that, right? Because you're going to lead this big, you're doing this big strategy session.
Yeah,
So you
I
and
guess so.
Christine might want to,
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense for me to just kind of write that one. Yeah. All right, so I'll plug myself in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I want to highlight, I know I told you this, Saya, but for anyone who's watching this, and Kim and Zoe, highlight like the email that Saya wrote last week. I thought was a great example, of this, like, of anybody being able to jump in and just like send an email out, like in this kind of decentralized or crowdsourced content kind of way. So it might not be something you think about, but like I know that we all, like we all get idea, like everybody here writes, I know, and I'm sure we all get ideas of like, stuff pops in. Oh yeah, that's a cool thing about HSC or collaboration or whatever. If you feel inspired and you throw down, 4 or 5 paragraphs, like that's an email. And then I think it's really, it's a great model, to have them coming from different people. And different perspectives, right? Because I can talk about decentralization and it's the same topic, but it might sound a little different from me than from Sai or from somebody else. So just putting that out there. And again,
Cool.
not required.
Yeah. I'd even be curious to see like some recycled content too, like Kim or Zoe, if there's stuff that you've written in the past that, I mean, obviously you have to have the rights to it, but that's relevant to HSC. That's like, oh, that blog thing really makes sense right now in what we're talking about in terms of organization. There's so much content out there, literally at our fingertips. So I don't, sometimes Rob, you've pulled, like these graphics that take up space in an email. Like those are just like an inspired choice about what to share at that time. Yeah, so That's my addition to that. So we're good for the month of May, and then in June, we've got Rob doing a lot of formatting and sending. I took it on for a few months, and that actually worked really well, and I got to know how to efficiently use Zoho, even when it dumped my entire email and had me redo it all over again immediately. So I got to know it really well. I got really fast at it, and I'm happy to go back to it, but it won't be May and June. So for anybody who would consider doing that, it took several weeks of doing it to feel like I was proficient, where I got like fast at it. But might be different for someone else, might be easier. Yeah. So, does anybody feel like chiming in on writing in June or pulling something together for content in June? No? All right, that's fine. We'll get to it. I'd be kind of excited to write after the big meeting. What week is that? Yeah, so I'll do that. I could do like a, hey, this is what I harvested from the meeting, blah, 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 kind of thing.
Cool. Thank
Cool.
you.
And here's what's next, kind of whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
great.
put me in there for June 3rd. Somebody else doing it? I don't want to double do this. I can't tell. Spreadsheet,
No.
it's hard to tell when someone is actually in a field. No, I'm doing it.
Oh, on the 3rd?
Yeah.
June 3rd? No.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody's in there. Yeah, you just
Okay,
changed
All
it.
right, I did it. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and then let's go to the role calendar and just see, like we were saying earlier, not all the roles are necessary all the time, depending on what's actually happening. We've just covered the main ones for the moment, I think.
Mhm.
Discord manager. I'm just reading down the list. Meeting notes curator, community manager, member portal manager.
And I will say that it's likely that the roles that we, the roles that we need and what we might, be calling them and how we might be defining them, might come into clearer focus next week after
Yeah.
next.
Yep, for
Um,
sure.
Yeah. And I also I think it's a good, you know, the keeping in mind that there's roles and then there's sort of tasks, or projects, and that some people might prefer, project is more like a singular thing, and a role is like, hey, I'm doing, I'm responsible for this, and so it's good to keep in mind for next week.
Yeah, I like that addition of projects. Like roles, projects, and tasks. Those are some good categories.
Mm.
I like that. A project to me has a start and end date. A task is like a one-time thing, but I could sign up to do it 3 times. For example, a task like writing an email. And a role is like an overseeing, or I'm taking that on for the next stretch of time or something like that. But it's an ongoing need. It's not a project that starts and ends the way that Basil built this spreadsheet. That was a start finish, Although he put himself in here as a calendar manager.
Yeah, I
For
still
Mark.
have to pass that on.
Okay.
Kim is still, the role of, facilitating the recordings, putting those in the meeting notes and somewhere else. Those are they've been hard to pass off. There's those things where initially it takes more time to teach somebody else to pass it off than it does to do it myself, even though that's not over time. So that's where, but maybe we can get to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. Well, and one question is like, okay, Zoe, for May, you're the Skillshare manager. We just talked about you managing Skillshares for the following months. So you continue to be the Skillshare manager, correct? Like there's a few things
Yes.
here that are pretty straightforward. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great. Great. I think July. I'm not looking at my calendar.
Ding, ding.
Funny noises. July.
Yeah, and the calendar manager, it is a real thing. It's not that huge of a role, but it is a thing. But again, have to like pass that off.
Yeah. Okay. I'd be down to go back to doing formatting emails, Rob.
Oh, you mean like in July or August?
Yeah, July, August, September. I don't know. I'll just throw myself in there.
That's great.
I don't see anything like crazy about my schedule in those, just normal crazy, not like this month in June.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so that's that. Weekly content writing. Okay, so unless anybody sees anything here they want to jump in on, or unless somebody has something in mind that like needs to happen, I think we're good for tasks and roles for the moment. Anything? Okay, great. We have 5 minutes to talk about needs and offerings.
Well, we could ask, I mean, does
Okay.
anybody have any, have any burning needs that they want to, share with us?
I need to replace my computer. So I'm wondering if I don't hear from this person locally, like I'd really like to get his support on like replacing my technology and doing that well for what my needs are. I'm wondering if Kim, chime in if you like, but I'm wondering if Rob and Zoe would want to like have a little chat at some point, because it sounds like Zoe, you're in a similar position and we could just like share knowledge. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. That sounds really nice.
All right, great. So that's like a maybe. Like I'm not going to take the next step on that right now because I have a call to somebody. I'm waiting. Great, thanks.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool. Kim?
okay. If you're interested in replacing a MacBook and want to talk about that, we all might be talking about that.
Yeah, possibly, because I know we're talking actually about giving one computer to Troy. Yeah, so I possibly.
Oh,
Huh.
nice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We're all
So we need to upgrade somebody, so I'm not sure. Places, I guess.
All right, cool.
Get another couple people. That's like a skill share.
I know, I'm been trying to catch up here on, because I wasn't even seeing the emails. So I'm now I've got them and I don't know if I'll ever see them because they just get too far down in my email. So I'll have to actually make an effort to go out and find them. And so, or somehow filter them. I don't understand what formatting and sending is. So that's why I'm just sitting here, like going, I don't, there's a lot of things I don't know. So at some point, maybe those are things I could do, but I don't even know what Zoho is. So
Okay,
I don't know
got
either.
it.
just wanted to tell you all that and share that.
Got it. It's
Cool.
like if you've heard of MailChimp or Constant Contact, it's like it's a different platform for that. And I think, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, we're using the free version
For
currently.
now, we're using the free version. Yeah.
So it's just a platform for email. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it works fine. Yeah. You have to like make sure to remember to like save your work as you're going, but
Work before it disappears.
yeah. Kim, you know what? I mean, literally yesterday, I set up a page on the like the HS Cooperative site that has email archives that has the last 20 emails. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary for you to go back and read what's there. I think you're sort of caught up well enough. However, if you or anyone is interested, I put the page in the chat just because it's just
Okay,
to set
good.
up.
Yeah.
People can go
Great.
back.
That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's a yeah, like that's a role that's like valuable, and right, if somebody has that has an interest in learning that kind of like email marketing platform, then that would be right. Like hopefully, and again, I mean, we're building something, and hopefully as we get more people, there'll be more ability to match, right? There'll be somebody who's like, oh, I really want to learn that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can think of a whole list of things. I'm just so focused on this branding process with Nyla right now for my business that I'm not going to add anything else right now, but I've thought about I probably should do the password manager thing. I probably need to stop using 4 email accounts and get more efficient. Like there's just certain things that that are obviously not ideal in the way that I'm working. But not there yet. Yeah. Offerings, so I am doing some more like direct exchange with Nyla. Oh yeah, and it's kind of time, but I'll just say this, that I'm doing like a sort of accountability coaching thing with her now for the next 4 weeks as a starter. And so I feel like it'll be a good template that I could easily like add someone to. Not that that person would communicate with Nyla, but that it would just be the one-on-one exchange with me for their own sort of self-tracking and learning and accountability process with things that they want to focus on with my support. So that is an offering that I find comes easily to me, and I love doing it. And it's really like fun to keep somebody company while they do what they do, whether it's stuff they love doing and they're overwhelmed about, or whether it's stuff that they're avoiding and they just need a little more presence to get through it. So that's on my offerings table. And that's pretty much time. I mean, I don't need to jump off straight away, but any other needs and offerings at the moment?
Nothing's jumping to mind, but I like talking about these needs and offerings and then connecting them with like the roles and that conversation that we're having. Just as an idea, right? Like my, like how do my offerings, what I want to offer, like fit with a role, that's needed. And just in, in the same way as like, right, the needs and offer, like the matches between people.
That's a good point. I like that. That could even be like someone sort of scans all of that at some point and looks for the matches, like as HSC, where like what could HSC be receiving in that way?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Well, okay, last end of my agenda here is as my last plug for Friday. This Friday we're having a get it done day. It's great if you can sign up in advance, so that I know how many people to expect, because that helps me structure how we do the day. But there'll be most of the day will be time for you to work on your stuff, whatever that means. And then there'll be check-in times with all of us together. For cheerleading and energizing and support and entertainment. Yeah.
Cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Me too. Me too. And it works for me to facilitate it. I get a lot done.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you got to be on target.
Yeah, I got to be there. and which means I'm also gonna have 45 minutes to do X while everyone else does X or Z or Y or whatever. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's good.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Zoe and Kim. Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
really
much.
great to have the conversation. I mean, all of it, but to, get the inputs really awesome. And thank you, Saya, for facilitating. Woo, woo.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun. It gets easier the more I do it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And if you can make it to the big, what Rob is calling the big capitalized strategy meeting next week, that'd be amazing. I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, see you there.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Chart the course. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
See you.